All right.
That may be a
Welcome.
little too close.
Exciting day today. It is the launch of Modern Badass Tales from the Leadership Front. There you go. Most importantly, it's a love letter from me and from me to all of the other badasses out there, of which David Taylor Klaus, you, my friend, are definitely one of them.
I
So
take that as a compliment.
always a compliment. Always a compliment. I am happy and thrilled, delighted, honored that you've decided to join me today to have this conversation. Um, this project has been a long time coming, and you were there to witness the birth of the idea and the birth of this 25-year mission that I'm on to be the world-renowned coach of modern badasses. So exciting days, nervo-sighted, and all the things. Hi, Cher. Hi, Michael. Thank you so much for joining us today. Hi, Sovig. Thank you. Kevin, awesome. Thank you for joining today. So, David,
Yes,
uh,
ma'am.
let's talk. Let's talk about what a modern badass is. And so I'm going to describe them as pattern interrupters, change agents, disruptors, the people that are always saying why not, asking why not, instead of saying why. Live examples of people who I would call badasses are Steve Jobs, Gloria Steinem, Serena Williams, Thomas Edison, Sarah Blakely. These are RBG. These are people that have had outsized impact on how we live. You don't have to like them as people, and you can recognize the impact that they've had on you, society, technology, all the things. So you can hate an iPhone. I happen to love my iPhone. You can hate the iPhone and be an Android user and still recognize that, but for someone like a Steve Jobs, you probably wouldn't have that Android phone in your hand. So, David, tell me a little bit more about your journey to badassery. Where have you been the pattern interrupter? Where have you been the change agent? Where and how have you been thrown out of the room, much like I've been thrown out of rooms?
Ooh. Yeah, I have a long list of rooms that I was thrown out of. You and I have joked about this before that one of the reasons that folk like us become entrepreneurs is because we've been fired so often, or as they say, freed up for industry. Um, I saw so many ways that things could and should have been done differently or done better. And I would, let's just say, inelegantly and in poor politics, call that out. And instead of working to change from the inside, instead of being the pattern interrupter, I was the system annihilator.
Mm,
And that was always the wrong way to handle it. So that took some learning. But it also afforded me a lot of opportunity. I came from the world of technology, and my push going all the way back to the 80s was that the silicon should serve the carbon. In other words, all of the technology should be built around the needs and the working styles and what's actually functionally best for the humans. And it was too often we were seeing already where people are saying, we're just going to change the way we do our work to match what the platform already does. And that was a disastrous mistake because people
yeah.
don't work like computers do. So instead of making it better, making what the humans do, making it better, it was disrupting everything and in a way that didn't serve. Back to the Steve Jobs, back to the app driven interface that we have on phones. Right now, so much push is put into getting us to look at that phone for that dopamine hit.
Yeah.
And there are ways in which it's a bad pattern interrupt. So looking at how do we do things, how do we use our ability to interrupt the patterns in a way that serves? And
Yeah,
that took a while for me to
100%.
learn.
So one of the things, and hindsight being 2020, uh, I was intrapreneurial in my corporate life before I recognized that that was actually where I still don't know if it's a word, but let's just say it's a word. If my job description were square, I'd say, well, why can't it be a rectangle? Why can't it be a circle? Why can't it be a triangle? Why can't it be a rhombus? And so I believed my mission was to be creative, to drive results, to drive numbers. I was very literal in that way. And what I didn't realize was how much I was not reading the room because
Mm,
I was hearing the deliver the numbers, but I was also not hearing the things that weren't being said. So the things that weren't being said were things like, and here's our culture, or do it within the realm of our culture. Or you can be change agent E or change agent ish, but there is a line that you can't cross. I never understood that there was a line. Uh, and of because I didn't understand there was a line, I was always crossing it. So it wasn't that my energy was bad. It's just that my intentions were not understood. I was not doing a good job of connecting what was important to me with what was important to the people on the other side of the table so that we would have intentions being clear as opposed to me looking like I'm always in tension with someone else. And so, Einstein, or allegedly Einstein, said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over again and expecting a different result. I always thought if that I pushed, I always thought if I broke rules, I always thought that, if I convince or say it loud enough and often enough, someone would all of a sudden say, "Oh, why weren't we thinking? Why weren't we listening to her? She's brilliant." And we should do all the things that she's telling us to do, and that
I think you're
causes
speaking really beautifully to the unintended impact that
yeah,
we leave. Our leadership wake tends to look like a lot of unintended impact, which is
yeah,
incredibly frustrating.
yeah, unintended impact, a ton of collateral damage, a ton of in my case, I'm not going to say for you, but in my case, I left a ton of bodies behind because I was so hard charging. I wanted to move so fast. I had
Hmm.
a clear vision of what success looked like in my mind. So what? If there were things that got broken. I mean, there's that. I was definitely the bull in the china shop, and we can agree that sometimes the china is ugly and it needed to be broken. But maybe that china was pretty to other people, and I didn't fully appreciate that. And so this tension I was in, or this confusion I was in, was really painful to me, and to the point where someone told me, and I have such empathy for him now. What was Someone told me, "You're the hardest person I've ever had to manage," and
Mm.
hearing that was so wounding. I think I still remember what I wore that day. I remember the conference room I was in. I remember that it was a small conference room. There were 6 chairs around the table, and the table was white. The conference room had side lights where there was like glass that you could look out into the hallway. And it was like, oh my God, I thought someone was about to congratulate me for doing such good work. But you're the hardest person I've ever had to manage. That felt like, we don't want you. We don't like you. We don't feel you don't fit in. You are other. You are contrary, and not in ways that are charming. uh you don't belong here, you don't fit in, like all of the things, and it felt so isolating. It felt sidelining. My spirit felt like I had no value. So fast forward to today, and I realize I'm not the only person that's felt like that. Fast forward to today, I'm not the only person who didn't know how to create the environment in which I could shine. I'm not the only person today who's had to manage someone like me to figure out how to channel my awesome while also channeling their own awesome. And so I have such tremendous empathy for the people who are my leaders. And because this is a love letter, I have a tremendous amount of empathy for people who are my people. And that's why I wrote this book. Is I know I'm not the only one. I know I'm not the only one who didn't know how to connect powerfully. And I'm wondering, what are your thoughts knowing the journey I've had? And this is not the first time I've shared this story with you. Just wondering what your thoughts or what observations you'd have for me.
I think I want to start with the gratitude because yes, it's a love letter, and um, giving us a name is such a gift because unfortunately, since there isn't really language for it, people are reduced to shorthand. And unfortunately, the terms that get used are a-hole, or they call us toxic. And I mean, not that it wasn't painful, but at least what you heard was you're the hardest person to manage. It often comes out much more harshly. And because we
Oh,
haven't had language for it.
hardest person to manage was French for a-hole. Let's
Yeah,
be
yeah, no, no,
clear.
no, no. I get it. It was a nice spin. But that's the challenge because there are people who really are toxic, right? And by calling what you're calling the modern badass, by calling them toxic or a-holes, it reduces them, it
Yeah,
dehumanizes them. And I think it's super important to have a label that fits.
yeah, yeah. And the thing that I worry about is, look, we know who Steve Jobs is, we know who RBG is, we know who Gloria Steinem is, we know who Edison is, we know who Malala Yousafzai is. We all know who these people are. What I worry about, what gets me really concerned is who are the badasses that we've not met because they've been sidelined or they sidelined themselves, like they've given up. What
It's
technology
the
do we not
giving
have?
up. Oh,
What IP do we not have? What beautiful piece of art do we not have in the world because these people remain hidden? And that is a tremendous cost. If we can agree that this phone is a tool for good, well, I mean, as a general matter, that this has some positive outsized impact on us, then there are things out there. There are things out there that we don't know about because these people have checked out or someone has checked them out on their behalf.
yeah, because they've
And
given
that
up.
that hurts. That hurts.
Well, and Catherine Johns, one of the comments said how often she was called the B word. I mean, it's
Yeah,
incredible how insulting managers become and leaders become because they don't know what to do with us. And I
right.
think that's again another piece that you've done beautifully in the book is helping leaders understand how to channel these folks and how to surface what's powerful within them and how to play better with others at the same time.
Right, right. And thank you for bringing that up. It was written as a love letter to these modern badasses, and the people who are adjacent to them can also figure out the decoding devices to say, what's going on with this person? How can I engage with them better? I mean, there's three sides to every story: one side, the other side, and the truth. And no one is broken. In my story, no one was broken. The person who said that I was the hardest person ever to manage, they weren't wrong because that's how they felt, and I wasn't wrong for how I felt. And so, in those moments, that's where leadership is born. Leadership is not born in a vacuum. It's born in those moments where we say, "I don't know what to do with this. I
Yeah.
wish I could engage better. I wish I could understand better. I wish I had things within my grasp to help me engage, enroll others so that they see the adventure the way that I see the adventure.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that I've been playing with, and you've heard me talk about this before, is there's a difference between velocity and speed. So if
Yeah.
I were to take us all the way back to high school physics, speed is the rate of, I know my head hurts just thinking about it. Speed is the rate of travel. Velocity is the rate of travel in a given direction.
Mm.
What badasses sometimes do is confuse them for each other. They believe speed and velocity are the same thing. Velocity is what having a goal looks like. So when we have a clearly defined goal that's clearly defined for us and it's clearly articulated to other people, that's when we're able to work beautifully and lovingly in concert with one another. That's what velocity looks like. I want everyone to be able to embrace the idea of velocity, is that you can actually move much slower than the rate of travel when it's just speed and get there faster because you have a clearly articulated goal in mind. So that's the first thing that I want us to keep in mind. The second thing, and David, you and I have been talking about this quite a bit,
Quite a bit.
um, the idea of values. How
Yeah.
have we not clearly articulated our values, not only for ourselves but to other people? And I don't necessarily only mean be good to puppies and kittens. Um, you know, donate to charity, philanthropy. Those are like baseline human values to have. My key values, and it took me a long time to crystallize these, my key values are freedom, truth, justice, creativity, and loyalty. I won't touch
Slow that
anything.
down. Slow that down. Slow it down. Do it again.
Freedom, truth. Did you catch me going in speed?
Yeah.
freedom,
Yeah. Yeah.
freedom, truth, justice, creativity, loyalty. I won't touch anything. I won't work on a project. I won't engage with anything unless there's some relationship that that goal has or that objective has with my values. David, what are your key values?
Oh, I keep them on the face of my computer. I keep them in front of me all day long as a reminder. Cascade, and that for me is serving leaders, not just a dead end impact, but an impact that cascades. Curiosity, creativity, connection, commitment.
Mm,
Um, I've got a few more, and positivity and play. So I know my values, and most importantly, and I think this is where modern badasses, leaders, organizations fail all the time, is I know what it looks like when I'm living those values. I
yeah.
know what's internally and externally observable. And I think what helps the badass is knowing not just what their values are, but what it looks like in
What
their
it looks
world when
like.
they're living those values.
Exactly. And what it feels like. So when we
Yeah.
when we bring values and velocity together, that's when everything feels easeful. That's
Mm.
when everyone is cooking with gas. So the invitation to all the badasses out there is, get clear on the goal, get clear on what velocity looks like. Be very clear on what your values are. And also, by the way, get curious, to use one of your values, about the values of the people that you are on a team with, or that you lead, or are your peers, or your clients, or whatever. Get curious. Find alignment between these values. They don't have to be identical, they don't have to be matchy matchy. How can we find alignment? Because when things go really well on a project, everyone's in love with each other, everyone's besties, everyone's getting along, everyone's putting the party hats on, all the things. But when things are difficult, when we haven't articulated what our values are and how they align, that's where conflict lives. That's where we end up running into a tremendous amount of difficulty. And we go from being a high performing team to a meh kind of a team.
Yeah.
And or worse, a dysfunctional team. What did Miss Sarah say? Hi, Sarah. Values and how we behavioralize them is crucial. If you say freedom, truth, justice, creativity, loyalty, knowing what our behaviors are that demonstrate those values is crucial. So true. If you were on trial for honoring insert value, is there enough evidence to convict? Ooh,
Ooh,
that
it's a
is
great question.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that would be a fun game to play or exercise to have with the people on your team. If you were on trial for honoring that value, how would we know? And so thank you, Sarah, for offering that up. David, how would you feel if we were to ask people if they had any questions? And while they
Ooh, I'd
may
love that.
post questions or something like that, what I'm going to do actually is some of you right now may be saying, I wonder where I live in the badass spectrum. So I have developed a quiz. If you hop on over to badass.sixcensestrategy.com, there's a quiz where under 60 seconds, you will get the results of where you live in your badassery. And at the end of it, I've got some downloads, some prompts, and some things for you to explore. So hop on over to badass.sixcensestrategy.com. There are some things that I also want to share. If you hop on over to Modern Badass Traits, that gives you a little bit more of a sense of the 14 traits of a modern badass that I've identified in my self-styled field of modern badass anthropology. You can put whatever crown you want on your head.
Yeah, and remember to capitalize that just the way you see it.
Oh, the modern badass traits.
Modern badass traits. That'll take you right to it.
Yes, I can do that. Badass.sixcensestrategy.com. That's where the quiz lives. And Shadi, thank you so much for putting the link to my website in the chats, in the comments, excuse me. So modern badass traits. I just put that in the chat comments, whatever, whatever that
Right.
thing is.
In the thread, right?
In the thread.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Lynn Hazan says they already post their values on their website. Going to ask the staff and interns as well. I'd love to see also, Lynn, take it a step further. Work with your team and come up with what's observable when your team is living each of those values. Makes it much easier to convict them in court for honoring it.
Yeah, I mean, I love that prompt. That I'm still,
Yeah,
my mind is
absolutely.
blown by that prompt that Sarah shared. That was brilliant. Thank you, Miss Sarah. Always bringing the heat and the gold. Dare I say diamonds. So thank you for that.
Teresa, I want to hit something else from your book too, because one of the things that leaders try to do with the population you're calling modern badass is to soften their edges, but not always in a helpful way. Sort of turning lions into lambs, and that's not the goal for these people.
No, so there's a wonderful fable called it's Androcles and the Lion. Some of you may have read this, some of you may remember reading this, but the brief description of the fable is that Androcles is a slave running away from this really awful evil king. And as he's running away from the king's soldiers, he's running through this forest, he finds a cave, and he's like, great, I can hide here. He runs into the cave, and at the very end of the cave, he encounters this lion that is menacing and fearsome and toothy and is growling. And so Androcles says, maybe I should leave. This doesn't feel safe. And so he turns tail, pardon the pun, and he heads out of the cave. And yet something makes Androcles stop. Androcles turns around and goes back to the lion. At that point, the lion extends its paw, and on the top of the paw is a thorn. The lion is in pain. The lion's paw is infected and still bleeding. Androcles carefully removes the thorn, helps the lion heal its paw by wrapping it in some leaves. And after the lion gets better, he starts hunting for Androcles and for itself so that they could both eat. Later on in the story, Androcles and the lion are captured. The lion is deliberately starved so that it would be released into an arena where Androcles is, and so the lion would kill Androcles, and that would be Androcles' punishment. But what happens is that as soon as the lion sees Androcles, as hungry as the lion is, he greets Androcles, he loves on Androcles, and the story goes on. I'm not interested in turning a lion into a sheep. I'm interested in removing the thorn from a badass's paw. That's the purpose of the book. That is the purpose of the work that I do. I remove the thorn from the infected paw. I don't want a lion to stop roaring. We need lions. I don't want a lion to stop being powerful. We need them. There are ways that a lion can learn to roar differently. That's what I do. That's what I love doing so much.
Yeah. Thank you for the love letter.
Thank you.
Zovig had shared in the comments that if I had a nickel for every time someone tried to soften my edges, I'd be a rich woman.
Oh my God.
Right?
You and me both, sister.
You phone from that telephone booth. Right.
Yeah,
and Carolyn Mabubi's on. She said she
Yeah.
works with adults and with young adults and can imagine how helpful it would be to coach emerging badasses to be more skillful, suffer so much less.
Yeah, Carolyn,
That's
thank
the
you for
gift of
that.
this work.
Because it's like I repeated the same things over and over again, starting my mid-20s. So, first worked for one blue chip company, kind of ran into trouble. Worked for another blue chip company, also ran into separate that I didn't know. And I wonder, and I don't regret anything about my life. I love my life. I'm so thankful that I've had my life so that I could write this book, this love letter. And I wonder what would have been different for me, or how much happier I would have been, or how much myself I would have felt, and as opposed to feeling like I needed to be different to be palatable to other people. Throughout a lot of my professional life, I'm like, I need to be different. I can't be me. Who I am or what I am or who I be in this world is not palatable. That is a painful place to be. I don't want people to have that pain. I'm sitting next to them on this journey. I'm not sitting in judgment of them. there are a ton of books out there that are doing this to badasses. And I get it. There no shame in that game. That's great. Not me, not this book.
Parisa, speaking of the book, you got right now, don't you have the Kindle on sale for
I
till the
do.
16th?
Yes, until February 16th, the Kindle version of the book is on sale for 99 cents. So grab it while the grabbing is good. And looking forward to everyone's feedback and comments. David,
And for
if
those of you who
folks
want to give the copy to your leaders, the leaders in your organization.
hint,
Yeah, hint, the printed book is available for you to give out widely and wildly.
yes,
Everybody needs a love letter.
you are invited to offer this love letter to whomever to whomever you'd like to give it to. If folks are a little bit more curious about who David is in the world, he reintroduces successful leaders and entrepreneurs back to their families. Here's how you can reach out to David one-on-one. David's website, if you're curious to learn more, is here. David is brilliant. David is the reason why a lot of the trajectory I've had over the last 3 years is, I mean, he's the cause for it. He's a lot of, in many ways, he's the catalyst for a lot of what I've done the last couple of years. So I'm eternally grateful to you, David, for your friendship and for your gift. If folks are curious about how to contact me one-on-one, if you're wanting to have a chat, an exploration, you can email me here. And you can also travel over to the Sixth Sense Strategy website and play around there if you wish. Shelley, thank you. I appreciate you. Shadi, thank you for saying it's also available in Canada. I've
Amazon
got my
Canada.
virgins
Yeah.
representing. Thank you, Shadi, so much. David is brilliant. Thank you all for listening to this talk today. Appreciate you being witness to the things that I'm most passionate about and the leaders that I'm very passionate about. David, thank you for your continued love and support.
My pleasure.
Means the world to me.
My pleasure.
Do
Looking
I have
forward
a
to seeing this out there. Definitely, please put the link in for the quiz one more time to let folks see where they
yes.
are on the badass curve. It's always good to get a flavor of where you are and spread the word. We all have badasses in our world. And
Yeah,
they
we
deserve the
do.
love letter and even more. Let them in for the quiz. Let them see themselves. We all want to be seen.
Absolutely. And Lynn, thank you for your question. I am going to be starting a group program for the modern badasses of the world. So stay tuned for that. If that's something y'all are interested in learning more about, please email me. I will put my email in the chat as well, so that if it's something that
Nancy
you'd like
Fallon,
to find out more about.
Nancy Fallon just asked a brilliant question. First of all, said this was very helpful. Asked if it's recorded because she'd like to share it with spouse, also a badass. So yes, this is recorded. It'll be on LinkedIn.
Yeah, it will stay on LinkedIn. I also have a YouTube channel. So if anyone wants to reach out one-on-one for a link of the recording, I'm happy to share the YouTube link with you. And again, if anyone would like to find out more about the group coaching program, happy to talk to you about that as well to see if it'll be a fit for you, or maybe one-on-one coaching may be a better fit for you instead. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, everyone. Big hearts, big love. Thank you for all the continued love and support. Be well. Bye.